Howdy and welcome back to Kerbal Kolonization. Things have not been completely quiet since last we met. I have actually been doing a little bit of science research as well as quite a few contracts just to grind out some money. Specifically, if you saw the end of my last video, I had my science cart running around the KSC, as well as I put together a little science airplane to try to take a couple of flights to see if I could get some science from locations like the mountains and a few other places that aren't too far away. I am a terrible pilot, so these were all pretty hair-raising, and I landed this thing via parachutes. Hey, you were warned. If you're here to watch cool airplane replays, I am not your guy. Maybe it one day, but not right now. So, that's the science. I've unlocked a few more things. I went ahead and got, where was it? The flight control and enhanced survivability, although this is completely useless really right now. Fuel systems, yeah, I had that research last time. I went ahead and got the space exploration for the radio particle wave study. Oh, radio and plasma wave science. Yeah, completely got that wrong. So we went ahead and got that for added sciencey stuff, and that really kind of was everything I could afford from a science perspective. Now, how did I get all the money? Space tourism, right here. See, we have all these. I've gotten quite a few of these contracts, which are to ferry tourists up to orbit. You haul them up to orbit, and they give you a big wad of cash. And I've been able to set it up to carry 4 at a time, which actually clears over 100,000 funds, spaceos, whatever you want to call them. But it clears over 100,000 every time I'm on the mission. And technically, you just have to make it to orbit. You don't have to orbit. So you can go up, make your circularization burn, and then just immediately keep the burn going, come right on back down. So they don't take too long, but they are boring to fly, and I'd have to imagine they'd be so unbelievably boring to watch, which is why we're not going to do them. Now, we are actually set up in a good position to go ahead and do our flyby of the moon, but we're not going to do that just yet. And the reason is we also have contracts specifically to do a low resolution scan of Kerbin and one of the moon, which is what we are going to do now. Here is our satellite, ready to rock and roll. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really need this protective shell. I probably could get by without the SRBs, but tell me that thing doesn't look good. What's the point of going to space if you can't look good while you're doing it? Alright, so throttle up, and here we go. Now, this rocket has pretty good performance. Those little SRBs give you a lot of thrust. Go ahead, fire up the main rocket engine, and we will start pushing over towards the north. And the reason we're going to do that is that we are on a mapping mission. The ScanSat mod is all about mapping biomes, just your various height maps, any kind of map you can imagine. That's what ScanSat is there for. And this is a relatively older mod. It's from, well, actually, I don't even know what the first version of the game that uses ScanSat was, or the first version of the game that ScanSat was for, but I do know that I've been playing with it for a very long time, and it's a great mod just because it gives you a reason to have persistent satellites. Because back in the day, there really wasn't any reason to bother with satellites other than you just kind of like the look of them. So right now, this is a mapping mission, so we're going to be trying to go into a polar orbit to maximize our coverage of the globe. And the ScanSat satellite operates best around 250 kilometers, so that's what we're aiming for. Now you'll notice on the nav ball I'm not going directly north, and that is because of the rotation of Kerbin. Some of you might know, but the actual rotation of the planet, there we go. The actual rotation of the planet gives you a little bit of a boost, about 175 meters per second towards the east. That's why it's common when you see people launching is that they will launch towards the east to try to maximize that boost. And unfortunately, with a polar orbit, you don't want that 175 meters per second. It's actually, it hurts you. So what you have to do is cancel that 150 or 175 meters per second out. You have to kill it. That's why I head slightly past north to try to cancel that in the course of my launch. And as you can see, I didn't do too bad. 89 degrees. That's pretty good for just winging it. So here we go. We are going to go all the way on up. Oh, overshot. Dang it. Busy talking and need to be flying. Not a big deal. The ScanSat doesn't take a perfect orbit. Just as long as you're up in the general altitude range, you'll be fine. So we're going to pop our antennas out, which, if you can tell, there's a heat shield. I don't actually need these antennas because my intention is to bring the data back. And yeah, not particular. It's a relatively distended orbit, but it'll do. All right, so since we're in orbit, it's time to deploy the radar. Love that animation. And let's rotate the sucker around here so it's at least pointing at the ground, although that doesn't actually matter. Now we will pop open our ScanSat interface, and we're going to time warp. And you'll see, as the satellite passes over the surface of Kerbin, we're building up a map of the land beneath us, which is it's actually more useful than you might think. Specifically, eventually one of the things you're going to be able to do with the ScanSat equipment is to map out where all the biomes are on the various bodies around the solar system, which will let you know where you need to land. This is especially useful when you're trying to hit multiple biomes on a place like the moon or Minmus. If you're trying to get a contract completed and you got to hit multiple biomes, having a detailed map that you can bring up whenever you want to that shows you where everything's at is very useful. But this initial scanning satellite is only going to be doing height mapping. And probably my favorite aspect of the ScanSat mod is that it operates just fine when you are not piloting the craft. I can actually leave here, go back to KSC, launch another ship, and this thing will continue to build this map over time, which is what I wanted, because we're going to go back and we're going to go fly by the moon. Now what we're actually going to be looking for here is our flyby ship. There it is, right here. This is our ship that's going to take us to the moon and let us perform a flyby. It's not too bad. Now, a few things worth noting. We have the new fuel duct, which I'm using to essentially asparagus stage these boosters. And what that means is the fuel from these boosters is going to get consumed to feed all the engines, and this central fuel tank will not be used. So when these boosters are spent and we drop them off, we're still going to have a completely full fuel tank here to keep us going. That's a much more efficient way to handle things. Then we have an upper stage that'll take us to the moon and back again. And we have a two-person setup here for a pilot and then whoever I want to haul along. Now, I could haul along just a scientist. In this case, who is the scientist? Bob. I can't remember which one's which, Bob or Bill. But Bob's a scientist, and I could haul Bob along in here, or I could toss Bill in there to try to get him some experience. Honestly, I'm going to go with Bob because I personally find that scientists and pilots are much more useful to you at high experience levels than engineers. Engineers kind of peter out and aren't terribly useful. Insert STEM joke here. But there we go. Here is our ship. And without further ado, let's go fly by the moon. Now, as you might have noticed, it's Jebediah's turn, and that is because Valentina got to be the first one in orbit of Kerbin, and Jeb's on the next rotation for large historic flights. I don't hold the touristy flights against them. Alright, one last check of the staging to make sure everything's working right. And, yep, we're good to go. Alright, so stability enhancement on. Throttle up. Let's go to the moon. Now, with these liquid fuel rockets, I can actually make a much nicer gravity turn, and I'm going to, because I want to save as much delta V as possible for the trip to the moon. Handles much nicer than the solid fuel boosters, which, I gotta be honest, I'm not entirely sure why, because I don't have any gimbal on these outer boosters, and yet this rocket just behaves itself so much better than the solid fuel rockets I've been flying lately. Yeah, whatever. Alright, so we're trying to make a good gravity turn because we want to get as efficient a launch profile as possible. And there we go. I always love those popping the boosters out with the Separatrons. Especially when they crash back together. I'm a simple. Whoa, what in the world was that? That was odd. Okay. Alright. About 40 kilometers and we're pretty much flattened out. We want to burn up to 75 kilometers and then we will prepare to circularize once we get up there. When I was flying a lot of these tourism missions, I was able to get my my burns for circularization down to 200 meters per second or less, with actually having 100 meter per second circularization burns, which I was pretty proud of. It was very nice to get to see just 100 meters per second. Alright, flattening the angle out a little bit and getting on up to altitude. And come on, there we go. Close enough. Alright, we are in a stable orbit. And now we can get set up to head to the moon. There we go. Moon's rising over the limb of Kerbin. And this used to be the old style of going to the moon, was to point yourself prograde, and when the moon rose over Kerbin, you would hit the gas, and you'd usually wind up pretty close. Close enough that if you had a bunch of extra delta V, you could make it fairly easily. So, give that a few more seconds. Alright, now we throttle up. Now that big booster is going to not make it back to Kerbin. Alright. Oh, dang it. Alright, well, we'll have to save that experiment for later. I have a new experiment, that radio and plasma wave study data collection. But I forgot to get it while I was in low Kerbin orbit. So, bleh. Alright, keep the experiment. And we'll go ahead and suck that up into the ship. Still flying on the node pretty good. Taking a little longer to fire than it wanted to, but the game doesn't take into account the changing thrust to weight ratios of your ship. Alright, and we are almost there. Alright, while we're up here, I want to point out a few little details about the ship. First of all, solar panels. And something not that way. Something you definitely want to do when you're making a trip like this is make sure you're oriented. Make sure you're oriented so that your solar panels are going to be getting plenty of sun. I have seen people where they have somehow managed to get themselves aligned perfectly where this end is pointed at the sun, so none of their solar panels got any power. They arrive in lunar orbit, and they got nothing. And by seeing people do that, I mean, I have done it. Now, one of the mods that I have installed is USI's life support system. And it's a simpler life support system than some of the others. One of the ones that I had been looking at a little bit was TAC life support, and that simulated everything. You had food, you had waste, you had oxygen, carbon dioxide, water, all this kind of stuff that you had to keep track of. And if you didn't keep track of it, if something went south and you ran out, your Kerbals died. They just died. And that's accurate. You know, in space, you run out of supplies, you run out of oxygen, you don't have any water, you just die. That's just the way it is. But that kind of crosses the boundary where it stops being fun and starts being a chore because, you know, in real life, you have hordes of people whose only job it is to make sure that all the kind of, you know, do you have enough food is accounted for? Do you have all the right equipment accounted for? And you don't have that in Kerbal. And the one thing that always concerned me was the possibility that because I really liked large, I like to have ships everywhere. I like to have all kinds of far-flung missions that would be doing everything, colonizing the entire solar system. And my concern was I would always forget about one with something like TAC, and without even realizing it, I'd just let them starve to death. And I was like, yeah, that's interesting, but it doesn't sound fun. You know, it's one of those things that's interesting, but not particularly fun. So I decided not to go with TAC. That's the thing that attracted me about USI, is even though you will technically... There we go. You get a little bit lower to the moon. Is that even if you forget somebody and they run out of food, they don't immediately die. You've got a grace period. And if it really goes too far, they'll just refuse to work rather than keeling over dead. So you do have the option to do, a resupply mission. So now we're going to drop our... Yep. Oh. Okay, close enough. Now, good news. We are in a moon capture. And we're not in a moon capture. We're in a flyby mode. We're going to whip by the moon at low altitude and get spit back out into space. And unfortunately, well, the good news is we're going to whip back by here and get tossed back sort of towards the inner solar system, but we're going to have to slow things down. All right, but while we're up here, we are in high Kerbal space, so we're going to go ahead and do some science. Log some magnetometer data. And the moon, because you're not on Kerbal, you're in another planet, the data multiplier, the multiplier factor for your science experiments is much higher, so you're getting more science for every experiment that you do. Whew, 50 science, if we can recover it, and that is the plan. We're definitely planning on recovering all this, so we will get lots and lots of data. Take a crew report, and then, oh, right. I wonder. I've got a lot of money. Let's try this. I haven't ever done this before, so I'm kind of curious if I upgrade the astronaut complex. If I upgrade the astronaut complex, will they be able to get out now? So let's find out. Because there is definitely, with an EVA report, there's more science to be had, and we definitely want to get as much science as possible. So let's see if... And somehow, I guess they radioed the information up to Jeb about how to get out and perform a science report. So regardless, there we go. So we have a crew report, we have an EVA report, radio plasma wave, magnetometer, science... Oh, mystery goo. That's the one we haven't done. Mystery goo. So now we have a full suite of science experiments. So time to suck all that data up. That gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... 8, right. Alright, so now the only thing left to do is fall in towards the moon. Alright, and the lunar flyby is always kind of a fun moment, especially here with in the career mode, when you're having to do it in a much smaller ship than you might normally have wanted to do it in. So it's kind of a proud moment for Kerbals. Whoa! Things flipped by. So now we are 60 kilometers over the surface of the moon, which is still too high for doing near mooner science. Let's just double check that. Oh, I was wrong. Huh. I wonder if they changed that since the last time I played, because I would swear that you had to be much lower than that to get the science. Well, regardless, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, so we will take some more science. And there's the thermometer. Whip around here. Which one of these? Yep, there we go. That mystery goo hasn't been observed. And as you can see, we're going to be getting a ton of science during this flyby, which is nice because I've got a ton of money. Now I just need all the science so I can unlock cool new parts to go do interesting new things. So have we done that? Yep, near the moon. We have done all that science. So now suck all that information back up in there. And we have now done all of our science, and now it's time to think about how we're going to get home. Because that is way too high a periapsis to ever get back. So, alright, we're actually going to skim 15 kilometers, and nope, we're bouncing back up into orbit. We have made our low pass of the moon. We have conducted that flyby. There we go. And fire up our engine. And we're going to... Actually, what we're having to do is we're having to kill all that extra velocity that we made on the flyby of the moon. And I'd have less velocity to kill if I hadn't made such a close approach to the moon. So, whoops. Well, regardless. Now, let's see here. Actually getting very, very close. Most of my lunar approaches that I can remember doing have all been preparing to land. So I haven't always given the most thought to, well, how am I going to... Strategy availability changed. I'm not sure what happened there. Because I'd taken the strategy of the moon program. Because obviously that was kind of the next step. So I'm not sure why this strategy would no longer be available. Because I'd taken it. I mean, we did the lunar flyby, but I don't see what that problem is about. Alright, now the thing I gotta remember to do is the radio plasma wave science once we get under 250,000. Where are we at? We still got pretty good power. And there we go. We are out. Let's get stopped. Alright, that's saved. Because we don't have an EVA report. Since we haven't been able to do EVAs before. And the real hairy one is we're going to do another one when we get under 250,000. And now we go out again. Just above Kerbin's water. I think we're more than just above, but alright, whatever. Not going to argue with you. Alright, click the last of that science, and unfortunately we're coming down on the night side, which, less than ideal. Orient retrograde. Start that engine one last time. And we are dry. And I have all the information that I needed from these guys. Still have plenty of supplies. That's nice. But there we go. Get rid of that. All right. And now we're re-entering the atmosphere. So let's get flipped around. There we go. Woo! As soon as we got flipped around, the sucker went cherry red instantly. Alright. We're coming in faster than we have been before on most of these missions. Typically, we come in about 2,000 meters per second, but now we're coming in at 3 kilometers per second. And, oh, there goes the service module. Things are already starting to explode on it. Probably should have tossed that off earlier so that I'd get more clearance from it. But no matter. Looks like, yeah, it looks like most of it's going to explode. We won't have any issues with larger chunks coming after us. So we are still looking pretty good. We have plenty of electrical charge. That's nice. Plenty of ablator. Yeah, we're doing well. Alright, 26 kilometers up. We are out over Kerbin's water. So that is an accurate altitude. Parachutes are ready. Yeah, this is a pretty standard coming home. Definitely slowing down. There's been some pretty brutal deceleration for the guys here. Alright, there we go. Out of the re-entry area, out of that compression heating. Still going too fast to pop the chutes. We're still going supersonic. So the chutes don't want to come out yet. Man alive, it is dark out over the water. There's nothing to see. And just to be safe, we're going to pop all the chutes. Slow down. And then through the magic of editing and or time warp, try to get this thing down to the surface quicker. Alright, here we go. Parachutes deploy as we get another achievement. Which, honestly, I think the achievements are a little bit bugged because I've gotten establish a stable orbit around Kerbin 2 or 3 times. Which is odd. And splash down. Fantastic. Alright, and we cleaned up on that mission. 428 science earned. Decent number of recovered parts, but it's not that great. But still, just because of the contracts and everything, we got a ton of money. Jeb got some experience. Bob has made it to level 1. Oh, wow. Brain fart. Alright, and a bunch of new ribbons. Research ribbons. Mach 5 for the speed we were re-entering. First Kerbin EVA ribbon. Oh, Jeb does get that first. First Moon EVA ribbon. And first EVA in space. Jeb made a big... Oh, dangerous EVA. Yeah, because we weren't in a stable orbit when he made the EVAs in low and high Kerbal orbit. So he's got that going for him. And Moon Sphere of Influence. Yeah, I really like Final Frontier. It's nice to get to see your characters getting their awards and accolades for the little firsts and milestones that they make. But that's that. Let's talk about how we're going to fix this place up. The first and most obvious is upgrading the research and development lab, because right now we cannot research any sciences that cost more than 100 science. So we're obviously going to pay for that upgrade. All right, so personally I think we're going to go with the advanced electrics for the better solar panels and the GoreSat. You know, nothing right now is screaming that I have to take it, so I am going to just sit on this 120 science right now. And I think that's going to do us for this episode. Thanks for joining me. I'll catch you guys next time. This has been Bucketeer.